it will download. Okay, so that
Okay.
is basically one job, one type of running the process executions. You sometimes you can just go and execute a Boomi process directly from process reporting like this.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to manage tab, process reporting.
Mm.
Let me show you. Hmm. So if you want to, you have created a Boomi process. Let us assume a logic shapes process only. So you
Mm-hmm.
create an execute process. You select a runtime. Here you can select whatever is the process and create an execute. Okay. Suppose
Mm.
you have used a FTP connection here. Okay.
Mm.
You did not schedule the process. Only when you click on execute, it will run. Okay. Suppose you want to see if there are any files for download. Okay. So you will execute. If any files come, that means it is they are present, and the files will be downloaded to this or any business related stuff that needs to be done will be done. Okay. That is one way of doing the executions.
Okay.
But now we said we will schedule the executions, right? So that way, if you create an FTP connection as a starting basic connector, as a base, as a connector for start shape,
Mm.
and you run executions, you schedule the executions. Every 10 minutes it will execute, and if a file is there, it will download and it will place the file. Okay, that is an basic connector.
Okay.
That is what is the job of a start connector. Now if you put it as a connector, okay, you have
Mm.
to connect to various operations like connection details, what is the action. This all we will come back to later when we come to FTP connections. Okay,
Yeah.
one thing you have to note is not all connections we can provide, because FTP for us, we should have an FTP connection details and all. I will try to check with Navya if you have that. Or else I will just let you know how to create a connection and how does that work. I think that should be sufficient, right, Sakshi?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one thing about connection. So the next thing is trading partners. So what is a trading partner is basically, before the API and all were in picture, um, we have some file format called as EDI, if you remember. Okay. If you, have you heard about EDI file format? Boomi supports file formats like database, XML, JSON, right? You remember
Yeah.
flat file. And
Yeah.
fifth one is EDI. EDI is like an electronic data interchange. It is a kind of structure very similar to, very native to certain companies, like sales order is something, suppose. Okay. There will be a file format which comes in that particular format only. Suppose you are creating a CSV file. We have discussed that it will be first name, last name, company, and experience that you have created. But whatever is the EDA standard, it will be automatic. It is a standard across everywhere in the world, and the files format will come in that so that it is internationally accepted. Okay. So basically, when you're communicating with EDIs, um, and before the AS2, before the APIs and all came into picture, they were using trading partners for communication. It is more like an FTP site only, but you encrypt the data and send. Okay, so how do you encrypt the data? Because sales order, finance details, all these are very sensitive. You do not directly want to send it over the internet. You
Mm.
certain certificates to encrypt and decrypt. Okay, suppose you are sending something, you encrypt with a certificate, uh, and I want to see what is there. I decrypt with the same certificate. Okay, so that is how it. So this is what is a trading partner. So this is very complex, and it comes at a very later stage. It is very difficult for you to understand now. But since we are talking about the start step now, I thought I'll give you a brief overview of what a trading partner is. Okay. So this is about trading partner. So what happens in Boomi is it clear?
In trading partner, we can only use that EDA file format.
Not necessary. We can use others also. But basically we use it for the ADIs only, AS2 and all also, but it's not necessary. We can send any file format as well.
Okay.
The idea is these kind of standards, it was basically trading partner was designed to cater those kind of file formats, but you can as well send as an XML, an
Mm-hmm.
encrypted XML as well with the certificate data, and they can decrypt also. But
Okay.
this can, but if suppose it's only about encrypting an XML and sending, you can as well use a data process shape, okay, and create a
Mm-hmm.
PGP encryption and then send a file, because trading partner consumes a license. You can as well do that to save some in a license, right? If it is not an EDA thing, why waste money? So like Boomi, everything is about licenses, Sakshi, if I have to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So suppose you're using a trading partner, that will be one license. You're using a disconnector, that will be one license. And when you take a Boomi license for like one yearly $200,000, you get only a very few, like 10-15 licenses only. So you have to make a very proper usage of your licenses. Anything extra you have to pay. So when you use a trading partner, it is basically with EDA related files only. Other things, we have other options like PGP encryption and all, to
Mm-hmm.
directly send and not waste another license, right? So that is why it is not suggestible to use that with this.
Okay.
Okay. See, some things you may understand, some things you may not understand. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not understanding something, please ask me and I will explain you that also in detail.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So you are okay with this trading partner?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so we discussed about connector, we discussed about trading partner. Now, what is this? We have data pass through. Okay. Now, what happens in data pass through is, suppose you have a very huge Boomi process. Okay. It is
Mm-hmm.
like you talk to Amazon, okay? You see,
Mm-hmm.
no. Suppose you're placing an Amazon order, okay? First, you take some keyword, you type it, and you get the search result. Take the first one, the best choice, and then place an order, okay? So this is a very big logic that you usually have, right? Similarly, when you're designing a Boomi process, also there can be multiple. There can be a very huge logic
Mm-hmm.
associated with that.
Right.
Suppose calling 5-6 APIs in one process, okay? You call one
Mm-hmm.
API, based on the response you call the second, based on the response you call, like
Mm-hmm.
in a similar way you are working for like 5 processes, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The good idea is you don't put all the 5 in one process, okay? Because any of the 5 fails, okay, you don't know which API has failed. So what we do here is we isolate them. Hmm? How do we isolate? Suppose start shape and the basic try catch block is there. Try catch is used for error handling. We'll come to that. Basic start shape, try catch. And if you're calling the first API, you have data. So that first API and data, whatever is the data, you put in process, sub-process one. Okay. You get the response. That response, you send it to another API, whatever is that second API logic, that will you put in process two. That way, what happens is, if any API, like fourth API has failed, okay, then you can easily identify that it was in the fourth API. You don't need to come back here and see each and every step of the process and understand, okay. And also, if there is a small change in the Boomi process, like fourth API, instead of using a sales order field, you will using an order ID field, okay. Sales order number field, you will use an order ID field. You don't need to come back and change the entire Boomi process. Whatever is related to that specific process, if you change and deploy, that should be fine. Like for anyone who wants to work at a later stage, they will understand that there was a change in this process only and not the previous process. That helps in maintaining the version control also. Okay, you are able to understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So basically, in data pass through, if the data is coming from the previous process, then only we can use that, right?
Correct. You could, yes. You cannot put this in the main process, because there
Okay.
won't be any data
Yeah.
coming in the main process, so the process will
Hmm.
eventually fail. Hmm?
Yeah. Means in this process only we can add this shape.
Correct.
Okay.
So this, that is basically a data pass through. Okay.
Okay.
So when you want to split the data into multiple processes, you use a data pass through shape and then split the data. That way,
Mhm.
uh, you split the process. That way, you will maintain isolation, and it will help you in easily figuring out where the issue lies. Okay, that is about data pass through. Now, there is
Okay.
one more step, that is no data. This is the this is the main step that we usually use for main processes only if we are not using a connector or a trading partner. Trading partner we use very rarely uh,
Mm.
until it is used extensively in the company and the legacy company doesn't want to change the structure in any way. People are not at all using trading partner. It is
Okay.
expensive also. Now
Mm.
we, if the customer is very like rigid and they don't want to upgrade, they usually use that. But otherwise, they usually use an APIs nowadays for communication. So we can use a connector or a no data as well. Hmm?
Okay. Okay.
So basically, we use a connector or a no data. Most of the places in 90% it is no data. Only that we
Mm.
use. Now this is no data. So now you have configured the basic step of any process. It is a start, no data process. Hmm? Okay. So we will come to logic shapes.